Today I'm going to be doing a demonstration on how to print your 3 finished Warhol inspired portraits. So I'm going to open up Photoshop, and as you can see, I have my layers labeled really well here. So I have my original photograph, okay? And if I start bringing these layers forward, I have my fill in for my Warhol 1, and I have my drawing for my Warhol 1. So these 2 layers are going to be printed for my Warhol 1 picture. So all I need to go to is File and Print. And first off, you want to make sure that you are printing to the correct printer. You have this little drop down arrow. You are going to make sure you are printing to PWSSD PRT01 PWHS Graphics Art Color Printer. That is the printer. That's the only printer that you have the option to use. So if it says one of these other things, those aren't real, you are going to click on the graphic art color printer. Copies, we need 1 copy. You are going to go to your print settings. And when I printed yesterday, mine was in black and white on accident. So you just want to make sure that color is selected here. And then the layout for me, my portrait is horizontal. It doesn't really matter because we're going to be shrinking these down, but you can change the layout of the paper here. We will go through that later with the body portraits. That orientation is important. For this particular project, it is not important. Color handling, we can do the printer manages the colors. I will be honest and tell you that the printer doesn't love to print purples. And a lot of times our images are going to print just a shade or two darker than what they look like on the computer screen. So from now on, if you want to think about that while you're creating your art and kind of, maybe stay away from those purples. It just, with mixing the cyan, magenta, and yellow, it just, for some reason, doesn't make a very vibrant purple. It kind of makes it more of like a bluish tone to it. We're going to keep all of these correct. And then I'm going to have you go down to the scaling. So we are going to make these smaller. So if I have 100% in here, you can see how Chris fills the whole piece of paper. But I'm actually going to print her at 40%. So she is only going to be 3.4 inches high by 4.4 inches wide. And that's going to work for us to be able to fit these on a display board. Okay. And then we're going to talk about scale to fit media with the next project. For this one, you do not want to check that, because if you do check it, notice how it fills the page. We want to make this smaller than a piece of paper, because you're going to be printing 3 of them and we're going to be displaying them on 1 piece of mat board. If you print all 3 of them full paper size, we're going to need a lot of mat board. Too much, I don't have enough of it. So 40%, go ahead and hit print. And if you're the first one printing, it's going to take a few minutes for that printer to warm up. The printer is located next to the door in the back of the room. While that's printing, I'm going to go ahead and hide my Warhol 1, and I'm going to bring my Warhol 2 forward to print. So that's going to be my background edges and my line drawing number 2. So these 2 layers are technically my Warhol number 2. This is the one where I used a different brush tool. I used the star brush, okay, to create her look. And then I used non-realistic colors. And then I filled it in, the background in, with just this pale yellow. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go to File and Print. Okay, make sure that printer is correct. I've already checked my print settings, so I should be good to go. And it should have kept the same settings from the first one that I printed. So you technically, if you did it correctly the first time, you shouldn't have to change anything in here. And I'm going to go ahead and hit print. And then I'm going to hide these 2 layers, and I'm going to print my 3rd and final Warhol portrait, which is my filter and my brush tool on top. So again, File and Print. And I'm going to hit print right here for a 3rd time. There you go. You should be able to go in the back of the room, find your portraits. If for some reason they didn't print, please see me. The most common error is that the printer has ran out of paper. The second most common error is that the printer has ran out of ink. So do not keep hitting print over and over again, or when I do put the paper in the printer, it's going to print however many copies you hit print for. Okay, so just be patient, ask for help if you need it, and then we're gonna go and talk about using the cutting board and the tools to glue these onto the mat board. All right, so now that my 3 Warhol portraits have been printed, it's time to start cutting them by using this cutting board here. So the biggest tip is to lift this blade all the way up. That way you can use this ruler at the top to have a nice straight edge to print or to cut your Warhol portrait. So I'm gonna kind of check here by folding the edge a little bit and making sure that when I cut, I'm going to get rid of that white border. When I push, so I hold the portrait with my left hand all the way up to the ruler here, and then instead of just going straight down with my right hand, I kind of push that blade into this metal part here. So I have a little force going towards the picture. That's going to give you a nice clean cut. Like so. Lift the blade all the way to the top, and you are going to do your other side, making sure that you are touching the ruler at the top. So that is a 90-degree angle. So I'm going to do this on all 4 sides, on all 3 of my portraits. Now I always get kids that ask, well, why can't I just cut all of them at the same time? You technically could, but if you mess up your cut, you're going to have to redo the whole thing. So there's one, and I'm going to quickly do the other 2. Now that I have my 3 Warhol portraits cut, my next decision is which color mat board would these look better on. So what I want you to do is I want you to test the black. I want you to place all 3 of them on black, and then I want you to go ahead and place all 3 of them on the white to decide which one looks better for your particular portraits. The black has a white side on it, but use the black just for the black. If you want white, make sure you pick the one that is white on both sides. The order of these doesn't matter to me, whatever looks the best. So, you know, maybe I want that one on top, and then this one in the middle, and then this one at the end. So kind of play around with where these are going to be placed. The order doesn't matter to me. Maybe you want these closer together so that the space in between them is a little bit less. Maybe you want them spaced evenly. You get to decide that. I do have rulers that you guys can use if you're somebody who, you know, want to make sure that I have like a 1-inch border at the top and the bottom, and then kind of figure out almost a 1-inch in between there. You guys can use these rulers. I'm fine with you eyeballing this spacing as long as it looks pretty darn good. Okay, I prefer mine on black. I also really like this order because these ones are light, and then this one's the darker one, so that it kind of balances itself. We are going to use the double-sided tape to tape these down. So I like to place it exactly how I want it, and then I just gently pick up one of the portraits, and you're gonna have to cut your tape to fit all 4 edges of this picture here. So I'm just gonna pull this and kind of visually measure those edges. This tape is really sticky, so you kind of wanna like carefully use it. That was like the perfect length. That one's a little long, so I'm gonna make it go up here. And I am attaching this tape right to that edge. Notice how I am not putting that tape over at all. You don't want this tape showing through on the front side. You only want this tape showing on the back. This is good craftsmanship, people. So this is part of your grade. So I've got all 4 of the edges with tape on them. Now I can go ahead and place. I'm not just gonna slap it down there. I am going to make sure that this is where I want it to go. So I can kind of measure where that 1 inch is, And then I can kind of measure the space on the sides, and I can just gently press that down with my fingertips. And then I can move on to my next one. Now that I have all three of my Warhol portraits adhered down, the last step is to sign this in the lower right-hand corner. One thing that I forgot to mention, you can do these vertically. I've got 3 examples here that I can show you. Actually, I'm gonna do it on this because visually you'll be able to see it better. If your portraits are vertical, you could do them like so. So you would actually have more of a border on the left and the right, okay? Or you could tape yours down horizontally, like so. Or if they're vertical, they could go this orientation. So you guys get to decide. You can also decide how much space you want in between them. So maybe you want these a little bit closer and then have a little bit more of a border on the edges. That is really up to you guys how that's going to be placed. As long as it looks even and neat, it doesn't matter to me. Now, if you're using the black matte board, I would prefer you to use this white ballpoint pen to sign. If you are using the white matte board, I would prefer you to use the skinny or the ultra fine point black Sharpie with this. Sometimes, I know a lot of you don't really sign your names much, so if you kind of want to practice, I'm not going to do it on there, I'll do it on here. You can practice what your signature looks like. Might also be a good idea to see how long that is, so I know where to start my signature. You know, I don't want to do it so it's directly underneath here. I don't want to do it so that I run out of room here. Thinking about how long your signature is a really important factor in signing your artwork. If you aren't very good at cursive, if you want to print it, you can. I prefer cursive because it looks a little bit more professional. So maybe even I'll have this underneath here so I can kind of judge where to start. Lower right-hand corner. I cannot stress this enough that that is where I want these signed. There we go. If you want to put a year, you can. Maybe I'll just put a little apostrophe and a 20 at the end. And there we go. Our finished Andy Warhol inspired portrait project is done.